Welcome to Talking Peace with the Western New York Peace Center, being produced here at WBNY, Buff State Original Alternative radio station. So we're very grateful to 91.3 FM WBNY and all of Buffalo State University for hosting us here. When I'm thinking about the producing, Greg that is producing the show. Thank you, Greg.
Good afternoon. Glad to be here.
Yeah, and then I'll just give a little shout out to our friends at Think Twice Radio, who also produce the show when we produce it, when we're pre-taping it, which we also do. But we're here live. I'm very grateful to be here and grateful to WBNY. And when I think of gratitude, I think of our indigenous brothers and sisters and people of color generally who, in spite of all kinds of hardships, are so full of gratitude and realize that gratitude is the attitude that we need. Certainly the Haudenosaunee, and I want to give big remembrance and so much love and gratitude to our Haudenosaunee brothers and sisters. I want to acknowledge that we're here on stolen land, Seneca or Anundawaka land that we are sitting on right now, and that in spite of all of the fact that this land was taken through trickery and violence, they still start every gathering with words of gratitude, thanking the people who made it possible, the gathering, thanking Mother Earth for giving us everything we need for a good life here on Earth, and the living waters, Mini Wachoni, water is life, that make life possible, and all of the wonderful plants, nutritional and medicinal, all of the wonderful creatures, the swimming, crawling, four-legged and flying creatures of all kinds, and all of the wonderful beautiful mountains and other phenomena here on the earth, and the sky world, and the brother sun, grandmother moon, and all of the sky world, and then of course the creator and the love that makes it all possible. And so then they would say Nyahweh, and the people would say Nyo. So I'll say Nyahweh.
Nyo.
Nyo.
Thank you.
And y'all from me as well.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all. Well, this is, again, another show that I'm very excited about. We are going to talk about ICE raids, ICE raiding neighborhoods and budgets, which is what's going on right now. It's going on in our own neighborhoods. It's going on across the country. And it's an important issue that affects all of us so deeply and so horribly, I'll say. So to talk about that, we have, and I'll go again on the round, we have Eddie Alvarado here. Eddie Alvarado is the founder of El Barrio Caribe, is a wonderful friend, activist, truth teller, and just wonderful to have you here, Eddie.
Thank you for having me, Victory.
Now, is that how you pronounce it, Eddie?
Eddie.
Eddie, okay,
Eddie
just
Alvarado,
checking,
yes.
checking on my español no es muy malo.
Es perfecto.
Mi accent no es muy malo.
Es perfecto porque estás tratando.
No hay, las palabras necesítame.
Se necesitan ayuda.
Vez a vez. Anyway, so we're not doing a Spanish show yet. Little preview. We were just talking about that, though. And so, of course, Greg Harvey, we're so grateful that you're here, Greg, producing the show.
Glad to be here, as always.
And last but not least, Alberto Capas, who is such a wonderful friend, is a board member of the Western New York Peace Center, which I of course, I mentioned that right up front. Although some of you're a poet and again, an activist, a truth teller, the founder, editor, and publisher of our beloved Latino Village, Buffalo Latino Village, which I'll say both, in full disclosure, Eddie and I are both columnists for that wonderful paper. And we'll talk more about Latino Village and West Side Stories, too.
Yes.
What is your Lower West, wait, what is your other?
The East Harlem Journal.
East Harlem Journal.
The Lower West Side.
Dedicated to New York City.
Dedicated to New York City.
Yeah.
And the Lower West Side.
And there is a Lower West Side. And what is the Lower West Side part?
Well, the Buffalo Latino Village is dedicated to the Lower West Side.
For the Lower West Side
Latino
also.
community,
And
so definitely.
Right. So anyway, so thank you all for being here. So the first thing we do as people, listeners of the show know, because of course they all know the Gnoño and they all know all of that. And they all know that the first thing that we do is we usually go around with just exploring, what are the values that we associate with this issue? What are the values that you think of as important when you're thinking about the ICE raids on neighborhoods and budgets? So I'll invite, us to go around the circle. So, Eddie, what would be a value or a couple values that you think of in connection with that issue?
Dignity, family, connection. Just goes back to dignity.
Right.
We're humiliating humans.
Right, humiliating and just, torturing, really.
We're humiliating humans because of paperwork. What we used to consider a misdemeanor in this country is now being used as a way to incarcerate folks.
Right.
Misdemeanors used to be just paperwork in courts. Now we are creating entire encampments to hold these folks. And not only that, but we have taken it to where legality is very, it's obscure now.
To say the least, yes. Right. So true. So those, and family, of course, family has everything to do with this. So, and
we're separating families. We're destroying families. In a country where we claim that nuclear family is the most important thing, we are separating families. We're taking children from their mothers. We're taking mothers from their newborns. We are dehumanizing not only just adults, but we're dehumanizing and traumatizing children.
Right.
When we ask ourselves as a society, where did we go wrong and where did we shift? Where was the shift? Is literally with the raising of our children. When we are educating our children, it isn't just what we are saying. It isn't just what we are teaching in schools. It's also what we are doing, and it's what we are allowing as adults.
So true. So true. So those are very heavy-duty values that are intimately connected with everything we're going to talk about. So, Greg, do you want to share a value or two?
So two that come to mind are respect and justice, or lots of injustice. And I feel even empathy for any ICE officer who is there only because that's quote unquote their job. Not all of them are ruffians, but some certainly seem to be. And how do we vet those folks out?
Right.
But it just seems to me that there's not much thought that was given to this whole process, and it's just basically some bodies in D.C. that are trying to fulfill some numerical quota that they came up with, just to prove that they are following through on what they promised to do, even though that promise is, in my opinion, way out of whack. So.
Right.
And we're not respecting the folks who are citizens in a country or who are in process of becoming legal citizens.
Right.
And it's also disrespecting the National Guard's people and any ICE officer that got dragged into this initially. We're disrespecting them as well and forcing them to do things that they likely don't want to be doing.
Right. That they hide their faces because they don't want people to know they're doing them.
Right.
Thank you so much. Yes, justice, respect and justice, so important. And Alberto, what would you say?
Oh, man, listening to you guys, I get lost and I'm angry and mad.
Right. It's so upsetting. And I should give the full disclosure on that this is going to be...
There's been a deterioration of unity, trust, and love. And the one name that has not been mentioned here, and it's Trump, and he's the creator of all this madness in this country. and we talk about that he wants to be a dictator. Well, he's already a dictator.
Right.
We talk about this country's going to become fascist, and we're already there.
Right.
So we better wake up. We definitely better wake up and begin to address those issues.
Right. Right.
But we need to bring back love. We need to get rid of that us against them.
Yes.
We really need to come together, or else we're going to lose this country.
So I'm so glad you brought up love, because that is the one I always have to mention, and I will mention it to myself for a value that we have to hold up. And so, sort of the inverse of what you said. So the value of democracy, of having a real democracy.
Yeah, there's been like a also the deterioration of compassion.
Right.
Passion. I mean, all that is beginning to disappear, and that scares me.
Right.
Yeah, it scares me.
Oh, it is.
And it scares me most because I have young kids.
Right.
And that's a lot of young kids in this world. I mean, I'm 79 years old. I'll be 80 pretty soon. So I'll be gone, So I'm leaving you guys to deal with that mess.
Well, we're all needed. We're all needed until we're not able to do it anymore. So one way or another. But thank you. Yes. Love and compassion. And so love, I always mention, I love that Reverend Dr. King's quote, really one of my favorite, if not my very favorite of his quoting him, is he said that truth and love will have the final word in reality. So love is so basic to life itself, to the meaning of life itself, and certainly to what we need and who we are. It's a lot of times misplaced or hurt love that
you have to define it. You have to define what love is, because most people just use the word. So love is action in motion. So that means you take your actions and you put them in motion.
If I could just finish, other thing is other thing about it's love, but also truth. So love that sincere caring about other people, and that motivates action. That is the reason that activists act. But the other thing also that we will include, and that's really a lot of what we'll have in this show, truth and love, but truth being so critical because there's lies about what's happening. There's lies about who people are, who's being taken, and for what reasons, all of those lies. So we want to look at the truth of the matter, and some of that is dollars and cents.
Yeah,
so that's
can
one
I,
of
can I add to that?
It can. So we'll just go around. We're going to have as a talking circle. So here, you can add to it in just 1 second. So I want us to talk, and we've already really sort of leapt into that conversation of what is going on, what ICE is doing in our neighborhood. So I think we want to start with that. So let's just talk a little bit. And you already said, I want if.
Because you can add.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Alberto.
Can you ask the question again, please?
I'm asking just for just for people at home who may not be aware of what's going on, even though, in some circles it's very well publicized, but for other people it may not be. What is going on in terms of ICE in our neighborhoods? And, we can go into other aspects of it, but what's
Yeah, well, before I get to that, because you mentioned the word truth. Mm-hmm. And again, we live in a society where it's very scary whether even the word truth is being redefined. Mm-hmm. People are throwing truth at you, and it's not the truth. So we have to deal with facts.
Right, facts, sure.
Facts. Today, in the era that we live in, facts is more important than truth.
Right.
Okay.
Well, I think I want to reclaim the word truth as something that we can use, even though I know Stephen Colbert talked about truthiness, and there is this way where people are calling things true that aren't true. That's a lie. So we can talk about lies, truth, and facts. And I need to say in terms of facts is that there's a lot of, when they said there's statistics, and damn statistics, or people have said that you can find that numbers to tell the story you want to tell some kind of way. But I will also say that there's a preponderance. So even though, we want to look at the truth, so, I'll say that there may be different aspects of truth or different numbers that may tell a slightly different story, but the overwhelming evidence of the facts of what's going on is what we're going to deal with. So it's very much of a fact that we know that ICE is taking people right off the street, ambushing them, knocking them down, arresting people that have gone, that are fulfilling their obligations. And actually, I mean, what I was thinking of when we were going on the talking circle about values is also that the disrespect, there's no respect for international law, which is our obligation of equal force with the Constitution. It's in the Constitution that our treaties and international agreements are full force equal to the Constitution in strength and importance. So that's another thing. So now we're going to go around the circle on what's your view about what's happening with ICE, especially locally. And, if you want to talk budget, we can get into that later or whenever you want to put. So, Artie?
So I think ICE is doing exactly what ICE is supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. I think ICE is fulfilling exactly the government role that ICE is intended to do. I think we have to, as a country, we really have to look at the foundation of this country. Mm-hmm. We love to claim that there's a lot of things in the Constitution, but the Constitution didn't see most of us as human.
Right.
It only saw white men as humans.
Right.
So when we say it's in the Constitution, we're breaking the law, we're doing this, or this us versus them, it's us versus it. It's an institution. People work within that institution, but they are not the ones responsible, right? Because we can claim that the elected official didn't know anything, or the person that was working behind the desk didn't know anything. That's why we have local politicians, actually, that are now congressmen advocating for 1,000 more agents to be brought in. For what? Administrative costs. Administrative. How are you going to secure and ensure that these funds are going to be allocated to administrative? We are constantly being segued between here and there with empty promises, with ways that we are boxed in our way of thinking, because we think us versus the system, or us versus ICE, for example. ICE is doing what the government is intending it to do. It's apprehending people who the government is targeting. So the discussion should not even be about ICE agents or ICE being in our streets. It's about why is our government targeting our citizens, mm-hmm. right? It started with Obama incarcerating people because there was a demand for undocumented, because no one is illegal on this earth, undocumented folks that cross borders that are imaginary and made up because we have acquired land that wasn't ours, millions of reasons why, right? That we choose to ignore because mm-hmm. it's inconvenient for us. Mm-hmm. And we pick and choose what's relevant versus what's irrelevant. ICE is it's a part of our government. Mm-hmm. It's literally an institution.
Right.
It's part of our institutionalized governance. So when we are constantly talking about ICE agents and what ICE, the institution, is doing, what we fail to do is we fail to hold those that are upholding the system responsible for it. Right. It is our local officials. That this is a city where all of our local officials are constantly claiming that ICE is going overboard with their tactics. But what are you doing about it? They're claiming that our people are being mistreated, but what are you doing about it? They're claiming that this cannot be tolerated in our city, but what are you, the elected official that was elected to represent these people, who was elected to protect these people, who was elected to literally be our voice, what are you doing? Because there's a lot of also talk about community, the community organizations and the community members and the community. The community can only do so much to protect our citizens when we do not have the advocacy, the help, or the resources from our local institutions.
Right.
So now it becomes about what are these institutions really truly there for? If it is for control and it is to dominate, then they are not going to help us address the issues with ICE and other institutions that are oppressing, subjugating, abusing our citizens, because there is no incentive for them. Their money comes from these institutions. That's why ICE is a financial system for Western New York. It is where we did not have an economic way of getting out of whatever hole we found ourselves in. We are now making incarceration our number one economic substance in Western New York.
Right.
So the undercurrent and the main issue for me is the institutionalized acceptance of organizations like ICE, of prisons, of private prisons.
Right.
Because ICE is apprehending these people to send them to private prisons for private people to get extremely wealthy off of these bodies that are being thrown in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
Batavia is one of the largest holding centers. So we are using our citizens as pawns to give to basically centralize the wealth into the hands of.
Yeah, well, basically, ICE is it's really a product of the system.
Yes.
And we need to look at these things now. I mean, we created Trump, the attitude, the behavior, the rhetoric.
He's a mirror.
White
He's a mirror to our society.
We created Trump. I mean, we need to look at the local communities throughout the country and really educate those communities, because it's those local communities that created the madness that goes to Washington.
Right.
So, so the madness begin here.
Right.
Getting back to the local level, in a sense. I mean, you could see the corruption, the lack of compassion from elected officials. You could see the rhetoric. You could see whether or not there's no real relationship between elected officials and communities. They come to your community once a year because they want your vote.
Right.
They make you promises that they never deliver.
Right.
They want your vote. They get your vote, and then they see you next year. So on a local level, is that attitude, is that lack of creativity, imagination, is that lack of commitment that created Trump.
Right.
That created Trump.
Well, and thank you for saying that, because now when you said about Trump before, and first of all, I want to say, yes, 1,000 times yes, alongside with, it's just like, and I've been told about this of comparing the current administration to calling it the Fourth Reich, which is what I've called it, because I'm comparing it to the Nazis. But there are a lot of comparisons, including that Trump has studied, Hitler's writings, and he is promoting and using the same playbook that Goebbels talked about, and their communication tricks. If you say people will believe a lie. If you say it often enough, the bigger the lie, the quicker they believe it. The more often you say it, the quicker they believe it. But also there is this thing where it's sort of I'm a social worker, so it's person and environment. So Trump, there's a part of it that's Trump, and that is an individual who is a malignant sociopath, or I think he's got a lot of the megalomania, the sadism, the paranoia, all of those things. But also there's the community that went for that. There's a community that believed the lies, or that believes that there was a time when America was greater, that was when it was more white supremacist that was starting. No, God, no.
No. I mean, do you believe that that there was a community that was dormant and never believed this? This is the same community that was lynching black people.
Right.
But they have always been around.
Right. So that's what I'm saying, that there is this relationship between leaders and the community that happens. So, some people, analyze it as it's the person making it happen, and some people analyze it's at the community level, and then the person comes to the front. And I feel like it's this very interactional thing.
It's a mirror.
So there's a combination of both things going on, and certainly there's we've talked on this show many times about Fear Inc. being the attempts to control, intimidate, incarcerate, or even kill. So that includes, certainly ICE and all of the hench people, the Border Patrol and Homeland Security, which didn't even exist a very short time ago. I think it was only started, just one sec, only started very recently. And the budgets are ballooning. But so and of course, the military, the carceral system, the prison system, in other words, and the sheriffs, the policing, all of that are attempts to control, intimidate, incarcerate, or even kill. So all of those things, we never say, oh, we don't have enough money for that. Never heard it said, oh, we don't have enough money for that. We have enough money for those kinds of things, and the budget always goes that direction. That's where the budget is a moral document. And when we put more money into that, which we do, so we put more money into the military, it's like 57% of our discretionary budget. It's 70%. As much as the next 10 countries put together on what they spend. So and the ICE budget is something that was infinitesimal, that has just exploded, and they've got all kinds of signing bonuses and things to give people incentive, and then there's all the companies that are raking in the dough.
You said it.
So as you said, the private. Now for a while, they had there was some disassociating with the private prisons. Well, that has gone backwards. Now they're back to using private prisons, and it just the flights of deporting people, the housing people in very substandard ways. All of that big money is being made. I want to give a shout out to Derek Seidman, who just did a report, or spoke with the Latin American Solidarity Committee. We had a coffee house that he talked about his reporting that he's done nationwide on responses to ICE. And it includes, he also works for Little Sis, which is the opposite of Big Brother. So it's sort of about the money and power relationships amongst individuals, corporations, and things that are driving some of the phenomena of whatever type. So of this type, this money is driving actions. And back to what Greg said earlier about respect and the people, the ICE officers, I want to just mention before we go back around that, I know someone who, and we won't say anything about who this person might be, but somebody who was picked up by confronting ICE because of going through the police tape or whatever, and then said, why are you in mask? Why aren't you wearing ID? And all of that's against the law. Well, of course, they're changing laws. This is what the Germans did, too. You change the laws so that your illegal things that you're doing, they become legal because you've changed the law to say, oh, we can do that. And, the Supreme Court has changed the law to say that you can pick people up on the basis of their appearance or the language that they're speaking or their accent or anything like that. So anyway, so this person, when she got picked up, she gave ICE a very hard time and really made the ICE officer woman who was driving her, made her cry when she was saying, why are you hiding your face? Because you're ashamed of you're doing the wrong thing. And that is what's happening. So they know. And so that is that moral injury, which is something that happens to people in the military too, or in policing, or when you're doing things that are wrong, or, you see what's happening. It's just, it's a heinous.
They should be shamed more.
Right, and that's what we're saying.
I was in the military.
Yeah.
I went to war. I went to Iraq.
Right.
I know I was wrong. I was throwing food out of the back of the truck. I got demoted for doing that. I got demoted for throwing water at the kids. I got demoted for literally trying to help the kids that we were there to blow up.
Yes.
So, no, I know that when it comes to morality, you know what is right and what is wrong.
Right.
And I got given the option. You either go to war or you get thrown in the brig. Okay, so I have to be there. It doesn't mean that I have to do whatever it is that you tell me to do. I can actually, I have a brain. I can think for myself.
Right.
I was extremely belligerent when I was in the military. Everybody's so proud of the military service, and I am too. I serve this country, but I'm not proud of the values of this country.
The way they did.
I'm not proud of the values of this country. Not what they did, what they're still doing. This
Right,
country has
right,
never
right.
changed. It has never shifted.
No,
It
right.
has utilized us as pawns to control and to subjugate. So you know better. I think ICE agents should be shamed more, especially you're covering your face because you know better.
Right.
If you know better, you need to do better.
Right.
If you don't do better, then you're part of the problem. And then not only should you be shamed, but you should be treated exactly how you treat the citizens. Exactly. So when a mob of citizens sees you assaulting a citizen, they should do exactly the same to you because there is no legality in cruelty. As slavery was legal. Slavery was legal. Lynching was legal. All of these things that we now are ashamed of as a society were legal. The same stuff that ICE is doing was legal to be done to black folks in this country, and now we're ashamed. Segregation was 90 years ago. 96 years ago, 94
There's
years?
still a lot of
So,
segregation still, of course. No.
Buffalo is number
Right.
23rd most segregated city in the United States.
Yeah, second or third.
But my point is that the same tactics that were used during slavery, that we are so now ashamed of even speaking of them, that we are so ashamed that we can't even teach them in our schools, are being utilized by ICE. And instead of us standing up like we should have done during slavery, because what would you have done back then? You're doing it now. We're literally taking out our cell phones and recording and screaming like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why aren't you treating these ICE agents who know better exactly how they're treating the citizens? Because they're not just picking up undocumented citizens. They're picking up legal U.S. citizens who are Native Americans, Puerto Ricans. It does not matter. They are picking up anyone who, by their definition, could be perceived as someone who's undocumented, not illegal, undocumented.
Right.
So lack of documentation does not excuse cruelty. It does not excuse abuse. People have been shot by ICE. Since when do you get shot by for a misdemeanor and it's justified in courts? Also, you said all these people are doing all these things in these towns. Where's the state? Where's the state government in this? Okay, so the federal government said that ICE can do all these things. Where is our state government? Because the state is supposed to be the barrier between the federal government and the citizens. You're supposed to be the protectors. Where is our state government? Our state government, our governor, is going to Israel to do little touchings on the wall while we're committing genocide over there. She's funding ICE. So instead of actually addressing the issues, they're actually funding the issues. And then they can claim to be like, oh my God, this was Trump's doing. Well, where were you? You're also part of the government. You're literally supposed to be the barrier between that federal government, which, by the way, New York State makes most of the federal money for this government. So you're supposed to be the barrier between our citizens and that entity that is abusing your citizens, not part of it.
So there are things that there's the New York for All Act that really needs to be passed. So that is one thing. New York Immigration Coalition has promoted very much so. And that's, there's that. And then there's another piece of legislation that's being promoted that is in, so I mean, I'm just saying the things that are happening that are efforts in that direction.
They're very slow moving.
They're very slow moving. They need to move. So
but the cruel aspects of it move very fast.
Right.
So when it comes to fixing those issues, they're very slow moving.
And the one thing that I also need to say is for the people who are standing by and taping things, I mean, we are grateful. We are grateful. We have to be grateful for them for doing what they're doing. So people who, as soon as they see it and they know it's wrong, so what we're organizing now in Buffalo, there's still a lot more organizing to be done to figure out how to make it much more visible without making it more risky for people. So how do you protect people without drawing more attention to people? So that's something that people are trying to tease out. So the other thing I will say is that, by the way, the Nuremberg principles apply. So when I went to Elmwood when those 4 people were arrested, and I got there just as the last ICE agent was getting ready to leave. He picked up the phone, and they did quote me on the news that when I confronted him and said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm just doing my job." They quoted that, but they didn't quote what I said to him. I said, "Your job is wrong. What you're doing is wrong."
Your job as a citizen over...
Oh, and let me, if I can just finish, that the big thing is that it is, well, first of all, as we were talking about, is that the laws are being changed to protect what would be illegal acts. But the other thing is that it is through the Nuremberg principles, we know that just that I was following orders is no excuse.
Right.
Is not an excuse. It doesn't wash anymore. It was proven. It was put down as
You're going back
defense.
to legality. You're going back to legality. And I'm telling you that ICE is not functioning within legalities.
No, right.
Right. So
Right.
the Nuremberg principles, that it doesn't apply. None of this applies because they're not functioning within laws. They're creating new laws.
And they're changing the law to fit the crime.
Right.
They're changed to make the
Right.
illegal crime. So we're agreed on that. That's nothing. There's no point of disagreement there. Alberto?
I want to deal with Buffalo right now with
Sure,
the local
please.
because they're getting
Yep.
away with a lot. We have to. I want to concentrate in Buffalo. I can't do anything about what's happening in the state, what's happening in the feds. Okay, so Buffalo is very important to me.
Please.
I mean, there's a saying, "Yo te cojo ahorita," meaning your son. You got 2 sons. One is behaving, the other one is not. So you're dealing with the one, but the other one te cojo ahorita, which to me means is that if we don't look at the deterioration of our value system, nothing's going to change. Eventually, we'll get rid of Trump. But if we don't get it together, we're going to create a Democratic Trump. Okay?
Right.
So we need to address that. And I think that somehow, for example, what Erie's talking about, we need to develop a platform for that. Reach out and really begin to educate people, make them aware of things. The more aware people become, the more protective we might be able to be able to protect society and really learn. I'm losing my thought, but basically is that a lot of people are getting away with things,
right?
And we have to address those things. I look at local politics where the abuse of endorsing candidates because I want you to play. So if you have the money, you're able to play. It's not who you know. It's not what you know. It's who you know.
Right.
That kind of play we need to do away with that. But for us to do away with that, people have to become aware of that so we could fight that. And there's a real disconnect between elected officials and community. Everybody talks about community. We have to serve our community. But communities are serving politicians. We elect politicians so they could serve us. But what's happening is we're serving them.
Right.
We're serving them. And we have to change that. And I think that organizations like the Peace Center and other organizations that claim to be serving the needs of the community who are not elected officials need to take that responsibility to go into these communities and start developing that relationship. So we could change things.
Absolutely.
And we're not going to change things until we begin to do those little things that become big things.
So this idea about it's really political education, which is one thing that we're really trying to do here, both with the radio show or with different events or things that we publish or share. And certainly the radio show talking piece is one of them. I do want to say I love the saying, no one is illegal on stolen land. So here we are on land that, the European invaders, settlers who were immigrants, and now all of a sudden it's like it's ours, keep out, you can't come in, and where money can move freely, but people cannot. There's all kinds of problems with our system, and it only makes me think of a friend's hat that says, it's a red hat, and so you see the red hat, and it says, make Texas Mexico again, because Texas was Mexico. So that border has moved all around. So keeping people, the way that it has been the affront to people, is a terrible thing. But I'd like to talk too about the budget, because the other thing. So first of all, this is how the greed and the bigotry and racism all feeds in. So, the people they're going after are brown people more than anything, or black people in some cases, indigenous people in other cases. So, and that it goes across not just the immigration system.
They're going after brown people right now. But after they get rid of the brown people, they're going to go after black people.
Right. Well, they've already already been going after black people. And the other thing, the Martin Niemöller quote, I think is very relevant, where it's quoted different ways, but basically he said, well, they came for the communists, but I didn't say anything because I wasn't a communist. Came for the socialists, didn't say anything because I wasn't a socialist. Came for the trade unionists, and I didn't say. So anyway, this is the thin end of the wedge. So they're coming for brown and black black and brown people whose documentation may not be in order, or it may be in order. We know that there are all kinds of instances where their documentation is quite in order, and they're following the legal process, and still they're picked up. So they're coming for them first. But as soon as this kidnapping people off the street the way they're doing, without any checking or anything else, they're doing it. It's going to become more and more, this is what we do. It's going to, just like, again, the Fourth Reich, just like it happened in the Nazi time. First they were coming for the Jewish people, but they started off with the Jewish people. Well, they started with the communists and the socialists and the trade union. But they eventually are just picking up whoever they want, and especially also dissidents, activists, the people, the truth tellers, the people who are, publicizing this stuff. Well, they will be coming after, and no one will be safe. And especially in this system now where we have all the spying. I mean, I've got my phone right here. I know that Siri turns on my microphone all the time.
We could address this so many ways, but what I was getting to about going after brown people, they're going after black people, is that there's so much ignorance among many people. For example, look at the number of blacks and Latinos that voted for Trump.
Right.
They're supporting Trump's policies. They don't realize that the agenda is to get rid of brown people because white people, the white power structure, sees that this country is becoming too brown.
Right.
Too brown.
So
a lot of blacks and Latinos who voted for Trump don't see that scenario.
Can I bring it back to the socioeconomic of it?
Sure, please.
So if you all remember back in 2001, after 9/11.
Right.
9/11, we had an influx of Islamophobia.
Right.
It was when we were having a lot of refugees coming into the country. It's when, obviously.
And then they stopped it.
No. What was created in 2001?
Well, there was a registry that they were...
No, it has nothing to do with immigrants. It has nothing to do with anything. It's all about economics. I'm talking about the money now.
Oh, okay.
So what was created in 2001?
Is it Homeland Security?
And TSA.
TSA, oh, right.
TSA.
Yeah.
Oh, the TSA, right.
So your TSA airport business, which is now one of the most booming businesses in the United States, was created out of a false flag, because I still claim that 9/11 was a false flag, and all the documentation that is coming out is proving that 9/11 was a false flag in order for us to attack Iraq and go and wage war in the Middle East for oil and to destabilize and to give Israel more of a power, because we have 512, the base there. And it is our stronghold in the Middle East. The reason why we're committing genocide or helping, I'm sorry, because we're still pretending like Israel is not another state of the United States. The reason why we're helping and not committing it ourselves is because that is our stronghold in the Middle East. That is our war home, like our FOB in the Middle East. So we are creating a whole entire financial system within the United States through TSA. Now we are monitoring who is coming in and out, who gets to travel, who gets to do what. We have monitored our entire ability to come in and out of this country, and it all came out of 9/11, right? Islamophobia. Back then, we weaponized a religion and said that any person who practiced that religion was not a good person, was a terrorist. We labeled people terrorists based on their religion. Now, those were also brown people. This entire country got behind that and said, that's right, that's true, yay. Why?
I won't say the entire country, but some did.
I mean, our country as a whole. Whether we agree with it or disagree with it is irrelevant.
Pushed back.
My point is, as citizens, whether we push back against the government, it's irrelevant, because as a government, when we present ourselves to the world, and we enact and implement things, those things that we enact and implement, regardless of whether each individual citizen approves of it, our country approves of it. Our government does.
So the power,
they
had the power to enforce
That's
it.
why I don't talk about institutions within the United States. Like what we are able to do is just follow the money. Our government was supposed to be a reflection of our citizens, representing the values of our citizens. Loosely. Let's pretend like that's what it was supposed to be. Anyway, but now it's a business, and it's being ran like a business. So Donald Trump is literally a mirror being held up against our society, and our society does not like the reflection that it sees. But that is who we are. When we look at our institutions and where we funnel all of our money, it never goes to our people. Like you said, our budgets are always overinflated for military, to give away to wealthy people, but it's never enough money for you to help your citizens, for you to fund the programs that are going to help your citizens. And we allow our programs to deteriorate. Our welfare system is supposed to be a 5-year system that actually provides education for our citizens in order to get them back into the workforce at a level where they are earning a living on their own. But how can you do that when no one in this country can earn a living wage? How can you do that when no one in this country is at a sustainable lifestyle unless you are wealthy? There is no middle class. You only have a lower class. And the reason why is because all of these institutions are funneling our money into the pockets of the wealthy. Our education system went to crap because Betsy DeVos and her entire family literally dismantled it completely. So ICE is literally just another creation of our Homeland Security for defense, because everybody in this country functions from a place of fear. Like you said, the fear, but it isn't fear of the big thing. It's fear of one another, because we have been so divided. Like Alberto said, we allow politicians to dictate what we do instead of having community leaders who are the barriers between your community and that elected official. They are literally the mouthpiece for that elected official into your community. You're never going to be able to change any of this unless you change the psychological manipulation that has happened for decades. And it started on 9/11 when we literally weaponized Islam as a way to hate brown people. And then it was xenophobia, and it was Islamophobia, and now it's Latinos, and next it will be blacks. And then what we will have is literally, because everybody keeps going to the Constitution only represented white people. So if we go back to the Constitution, we're in for a pickle. We're in for a real pickle.
I would say,
I'm just saying.
Not to say that the Constitution is something so wonderful, but it there have been improvements
it's
made
a working
over the
document. It's a working document. The problem is that everybody wants to pretend like it's a solid document. It's a working document. So when it comes to immigration, we should be legislating what is, not people. We should be, if it is borders that we have, then we legislate the borders, not the people. If you are having issues with your borders being crossed, then you have to address the borders. Once the people are here, you better give them their documents, because you know how hard it is to get into this country? Do you know how hard it is to come into this country, to work, to send money back, and to create a life? And that's the reason why. The reason why is because most Americans are used to being on the welfare system, and then you have immigrants come into this country and take the exact. Actually, we don't use the welfare system. We take the breadcrumbs that are usually given and create sustainable lifestyles, and most people don't know how we do it. We do it because we live within our means, and the United States has not taught their citizens what living within means.
So there's a lot to unpack there, let's put it that way. And I'd say, there are things that people could do, should do, and ways that we need to, certainly people need to understand what's going on better than they do. Certainly people should know that actually during 9/11 there was the declaration of really that state of emergency that is still going on now. So there are things that could be done, and some of them are being done in terms of sending the military in ways that are back to that were illegal or are illegal or being put under false pretenses. We're getting close to the end of the show. I did want to, I think we want to talk about ways that people can help and get more involved is another big thing. But back to what we were saying about the use of money, that the opportunity cost. I just want to make it plain that the opportunity cost of the money that's going into these great systems of Fear Inc., is the serving the people's needs, is the infrastructure that we need, the education, health, welfare, the medical system, public health, publicly and freely available health care, all of those things that could be paid for if we weren't spending all of our money on this Fear Inc. And I want to mention, of course, as we've said, even though you're mentioning 9/11, a lot happened at 9/11, that all of the phenomenon that are being reflected is, the white supremacy, racism, and the classism, and the terrible economic distribution. That we have one of the world's worst. Certainly in the developed world, we have the worst income and asset distribution.
Oh, yeah.
And that has gotten very much worse ever since, I think, in the 70s, mid-70s, and 80s, really. In the 80s is when it really started happening. But I want to make a little check back to, if anybody saw Bowling for Columbine, I know that's ancient history now, but they started right off with how the media... And again, the media is one of the big pieces of Fear Inc., along with all these other things, that the media is in this big hype for fear, so that fear has been fostered, and that lack of trust that we have in the community that is very pervasive, so much so that, people, we distrust everybody off the bat. In a general way, there's a lot of distrust in the community. So, with all the checking and everything, all the live shooter drills that we're having, all these things that just foster the fear. And so that fear is used to get people to put all their money into these fear-invoking systems. So anyway, I just wanted to say that. And really at this point, I think we're just give you a minute for each of you, and then we're about at the end of the show. So.
Yeah, we're talking about education and informing people. Have you ever gone to the Common Council for hearings?
Yes.
And to the committees?
Yes.
There's no
right,
people
there's
there.
Nobody there.
The place empty.
Right, very
you got
empty.
politicians talking to each other, passing bills,
right.
all this money, exchange of money, and no one's there.
You can't even tell what's going on, even if you
I
are
mean,
there.
You know, so there's a lot of problems that we.
It's all disguised too. Yeah. It's made very, very opaque.
Yeah.
So you can sit there, and it's still hard to know what's going on.
I'm saying that on the local level. I think that on the local level, there's some things that we could begin to do. You know, I mean, you have the contradiction, the hypocrisy. The state, through the feds, gave money. You call it the American Rescue Funds. Where'd that money go?
Right.
It went to political friends.
You're so right.
There was nothing. It had no impact in communities, no economic impact, no educational impact. And again, it's...
Thanks. Thank you, Alberto. And Eddie?
Well, I think that our country has elections every year because it's trying to tamper down our revolution. And I think it gives us bad versus worse, and we get that choice. And I think that the only way that we are going to change this is by forcing a third-party candidate onto the stage and forcing them to actually debate the issues as opposed to having a popularity contest. That's it.
Well, there's a lot of problems with our political system, too. So we really need to work on that in so many ways that, money is not speech, even though people say it is.
I'm sorry, but the kind of discussions we're having here should be duplicated throughout the city.
Sure.
And talking to communities and whatnot.
Right. So true. Well, I'm going to say there is so much that needs to be done, and certainly, I want to just shout out to Justice for Migrant Families, Buffalo Rapid Response Network, which, we're very thrilled to be part of and, helping with. And there's so much that needs to be done. We have, certainly the Western New York Peace Center is working with Buffalo United Coalition, and there's ways that we're building our strength, and lots of groups that we're working with, Open Buffalo, Push Buffalo, etc.
El Barrio Caribe is providing resources for Latinos who are targeted by ICE or who need legal representation. We will put you in contact with someone to help you out.
Yeah.
That's us.
El Barrio Caribe.
Yes, and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, El Barrio Caribe.
And people can, El Barrio Caribe, exactly. And then, of course, Buffalo Latino Village.
By the way, I just want to, I'm sorry, I want to give my email, latinovillage1@gmail.com. Whoever emails me, I'll be able to send them a comprehensive listings of resources of organizations they go to that have problems with ICE.
And we can put that up on our website also, so you should send it to me as well.
Thank you, Victory, for having us.
Oh, please. Well, actually, it's for me to be thanking you. I do thank you both. It's been a very lively, very important conversation because this is just such a desperately critical area where people are dying, people are suffering. It just can't go on like this. So, I'm grateful for both of you for the work that you do. Thank you, Greg, for producing this show.
Glad to be here.
We're so glad to have this show and to be here together. This is Talking Peace, and together we've been talking peace in truth and love.
Amen.
Amen.